Thank you very much, Dion. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen and full screen. Okay. All right. Okay, thank you. So as was just described, in fact, yesterday would have been the last day of our 3-year period, and so we are in our extended fourth year, and we're very excited about that. We still have much we want to accomplish. So, without further ado, I'll just say last year I think I talked a little too much, and so I'm going to be very mindful of the time this year. It's a sort of a briefer description. So Nova, Northern Virginia Community College has a pretty strong biotechnology program. We're of course hoping to expand it, but we do have two offerings for students. They can either do an Associates of Applied Sciences, which is 64 credits, um, and has quite a bit of overlap with our AS and bio degree. And then there's also Certified Lab Technician Certificate, which is 24 credits, which is about a year. Importantly, though, in either case, there is a summer internship. So even with the sort of the shorter 1 year program, which is usually geared at people who already have a bachelor's or something like that, but in either option, there's still the 1 year, sorry, the summer internship opportunity, which is really nice. In the background of the slide is the actual lab. It's kind of cluttered by what else is on the slide, but it's quite a good facility at our Manassas campus. A lot of sort of state-of-the-art technology. All right, so what we've been working on, and some of this is from last year and some of it is from previous years of our project, but it's sort of getting to the culmination of things. We can really kind of break down what we've been trying to do in three main objectives or three main categories: recruitment, retention, and preparation, which are pretty standard, but I think it's really kind of a holistic approach to get the students ready for the workforce. So in terms of recruitment, one of our targets has been dual enrollment students, just to sort of say, um, we've done sort of high school outreach events. We've even gone as low as eighth grade, which there's various outreach events. Well, sometimes the students come to our campuses, but high school or even junior high, it's sort of kind of a nice idea to say, when they're thinking about going to college, particularly if they're the first in their family to go to college, what options are available for them? How can they get a degree without necessarily going into great debt, or spending many, many years, studying something and then maybe at the end they're not sure. So, I guess what I would say from this is don't be shy about going down all the way into high school and junior high to just kind of get them excited about career paths, including biotech. A passion project of mine, I suppose. I have a soft spot in my heart for veterans for a variety of reasons, and so that was another group we wanted to kind of entice. On the other hand, we haven't really had much success with getting veterans into the program. There's probably reasons for that too, but not for lack of trying, which I'll talk about in a bit. Career changers are a good opportunity. A lot of times, um, especially with the economy the way it is, people are looking for something that can pay the bills, but also that gives them fulfillment. And biotech is a great opportunity just in terms of getting you transitioned to the workforce, even if you're already in the workforce in another capacity. I think, however, our biggest success for recruitment has been our own students. Um, you know, talking up the program, having students sort of act as ambassadors to recruit classmates, not officially, but just sort of to, give their experience, share their experiences with our own students, which draw not only from the bio degree that we have, but we've even had some students kind of transition that were more health science oriented. Because biotech is so expansive, it's not unheard of. It's just maybe they were thinking about nursing school or PA school and said, hey, maybe I can do this, especially with encouragement from their professors. Okay, so getting them in the door is the hardest part, frankly. But what do we do to keep them there? We try to really kind of work closely, especially with a smaller program, and so mentorship is important, um, obviously, but we're also going to try to make sure they do well in their classes. So we have a couple of tutors that are already Nova tutors, and we're going to try to do some tutoring workshops this summer, which I'm looking forward to, just to kind of make sure, the harder classes are dealt with and GPA is not the obstacle for successful completion of the program. We've been doing nearly monthly cohort meetings, so it's about three per semester. We used to do them in person slash Zoom, and now we've moved entirely to Zoom to try to get better, attendance and compliance and that sort of thing. And they're semi-formal, which means, we have an agenda, but ultimately it's a chance to kind of talk less formally offline, as it were, with their professors about how they're doing, if they're successful in finding internship opportunities or research opportunities or whatever questions they want to have before us without having to necessarily email us all the time. We've been doing some course updates, which I'll talk briefly about, which is integral to the program. And then I think the biggest thing that we're proud of, two areas of increased training. One is technical, and one is offering a research opportunity, which we were successful last summer, and I'm very excited to share that today. Okay, preparation for the workforce. As you guys all already know, probably the number one skill. It's not even the technical training. It's professional skills as a category. It's you know resume, interview, accountability, professional behavior, demeanor, attire, all of that sort of stuff. So we've been working on that with them as well. And then to get them a taste for what biotech actually looks like, we've offered some field trips. The big one, of course, paid internships. We were able to successfully pay, I think, about 15 students, a pretty good chunk of change, actually. And we look forward to paying some more this summer as well. And then with those field trips and internships and getting them into the actual industry, of course, naturally emerges networking with those employers so that they get to know them. Maybe they like, it's a two-way street. They like each other, and maybe they want to work there after they graduate. And then just to make sure we're all, piloting in the right direction, our advisory board, which has seen some changes recently, including the election of a new board chair. You'll see a picture of her actually in a bit, but they're essentially made up of industry leaders so that we're always paying attention, keeping our finger on the pulse for any kind of changes in requirements or preferences for who they hire. So I think that's been helpful. All right, real quick, just some pictures and then a little bit of data, but mostly images, frankly. And that is, we are fortunate to be near George Mason and work very closely with George Mason University. And so their Eagle Bank Arena have nice college fairs, this is like me as early as I normally get to places. So this isn't even when it was, probably full-fledged, but so many parents and college students came by and, we had a little desk there and all that to try to get them excited about Nova's biotech program and just raise the awareness of the program. This little desk was where I was for the Veterans Center open house. It was pretty awesome, actually. We had bags and t-shirts and flyers for them, and they wanted me to speak too. So it was pretty exciting just to get in front of veterans and, talk to them a little bit. And so there's a strong veterans population at Nova to try to get them excited about possible careers. Again, I don't think this is borne fruit yet, but I'm hoping just at some point in the future we do get some interest from our veterans. In terms of course updates, it's mostly the capstone seminar series that my colleague, Dr. Zoe, will talk more about. But also, we have a Bio 165 class, which is Principles in Regulatory and Quality Environments for Biotechnology, that has been recently kind of updated to be more in line with FDA regulations. So, sort of the policy and governmental side of biotech, not just the technical side. And we look to update some more classes as well. So that's just in line of modernizing the program. All right, some of the cool stuff we're working on. A month from today, we are actually going to offer a workshop for faculty as well as our biotech students in scanning electron microscopy. And why I'm so excited about this is twofold. I never had this kind of opportunity when I was an undergrad. My graduate school, we didn't have an electron microscope. One of my lab mates had to go to another university, which we collaborated with to do some electron microscopy. And just in, visiting the Manassas campus, my colleagues were like, "Yeah, we have an electron microscope. Here it is." And so it's just it's there. It's they have it already, but we need training on it. So we've contracted out a company to come train us on this unit and give these students a chance to learn this technique, which is, I think, pretty rare at the community college level. So we're really excited about that for next month. What we did last summer, like when you were in elementary school and you had to give a report to your class, what did you do last summer? So last summer, we decided to do some DNA sequencing. A couple of us had gone to James Madison University because their faculty was offering a technical workshop on nanopore sequencing. So if you're unfamiliar with it, it's really kind of neat. Basically, the DNA is split into two strands, attaches to a transport protein, and is kind of fed through a nanopore, which is proprietary technology, and an electric current is passed through. And depending on the clusters of nucleotides, they're going to disrupt differentially the electric current, and then the machine can read that and interpret that as a sequence. And then it kind of aligns all the sequences until you can build out an entire genome or any other segments that you want to do. You can do meta barcoding and barcoding of species in an environment. The sky's the limit. So we actually also well, it was more of an honorarium, brought the same trainer from James Madison University to our campus last summer. She gave a presentation. It was attended by faculty and students. This is one of my colleagues here. This is Dr. Zoe here. And this is a student with our biotech t-shirt having a good time. So hopefully they enjoyed it. And born of that experience was we got students to work on a research project. And so we took soil samples of 8 different locations in the Northern Virginia area, collected DNA, environmental DNA of bacteria, and then sequenced them, and then built sort of evolutionary trees, that is to say, trees of relatedness of those bacterial species that were identified in those 8 locations throughout the area. This is Billy on the right. He actually wrote a computer program using Python to eliminate the lower matches and to just focus, because we had thousands of matches of DNA sequences from bacteria. So to just focus on the higher matches, the higher percent hits, and build these, it's kind of small, but build these trees of evolution and relatedness of these bacterial species that were found all throughout the area. This is Noha. You'll hear me talk about Noha a bit, but she's the other kind of lead on this project, although there was multiple students involved in this. But why you see them dressed up is this was at last year's ATE PI conference in DC. They got awarded a poster to present in the category of students and alumni. So we're extremely proud of them for doing that. Besides that, Noha and another superstar student of ours, Katie, also did their internships at George Mason University and were able to publish or to get their names as first authors on separate posters as well. The one on the left has to do with HIV-infected white blood cells, not just the helper T cells, but I think the monocytes as well, and looking at exosomes as a mechanism of inflammatory signaling. And then on the right, it's a similar project, but using E. coli instead of white blood cells and their outer membrane vesicles and their role in suppressing the immune response to bacterial infection. So we're extremely proud of our students to be able to get on these research projects last summer. Okay, in terms of professional skills training, this is Dr. O'Brien, Faye O'Brien. She is also now our head, our chair, not our program head. That's my colleague that you'll hear from, but our advisory board chair as well. And she led some professional skills training, culminating in some data I can show you. I think this is from 2020, 24 or early 25, I don't remember. But a word cloud on the right and some numerical values on the left in terms of what skills they improved on. And so task distribution, who does what, how to delegate, communication, of course, which is related also to conflict resolution. What do you do when you don't get along with people in your group? How do you still accomplish the goals? Efficiency, which is a pretty high score here, which is good. And then, of course, best practices, which is one of the probably the most employable skills you can have, that plus the conflict resolution skills. So yeah, so hopefully things are working. We've done mock interviews and resume preparation and that sort of thing, but hopefully the data bear out that they are in fact picking up these professional skills to transition to the workforce. Speaking of transitioning, I'm going to transition to my colleague, Dr. Zoe, and he's going to actually take it from here. He's muted.
Sorry. Thank you, Dave. So here you kind of see a picture of the capstone seminar. The students kind of presenting their like kind of final project to audience. Um, so this course has been redesigned in the past year by a adjunct professor who was the training manager at Quest Diagnostics. And this course integrate biotech principles, methods, and industrial practices from previous coursework, and then emphasize collaboration, literature research, proposal development, and communication through a final project. So here you are seeing the students actually act as a research associates, investigating opportunities for new products. And then we have the members of our advisory board serving as a research and development executive board. And students are presenting their top investment choices to the board of professional um, to the board for professional consideration and feedback. So you're seeing that that meeting is going on, and our board members actually are seriously evaluating the students' ideas. Okay. Next, please. All right, so here you're seeing some like pictures from our field trips to local biotech companies. And so in the past year, we were able to visit like 4 biotech companies in the DMV area, including Granules Pharmaceuticals, Thermo Fisher, Quest Diagnostics, and also Millipore Sigma. And so these field trips provide our students with significant professional insight and motivation, and also allow them to allow the partner companies to learn more about our program and our students. Okay, so there's kind of some networking going on, and which I think increase the chance of our students being offered an internship or employed at those companies. Next, please. So here you're seeing a panel of like collaborating companies and also universities. Um, so so through the years, they have been like offering us with like internship, job opportunities, uh, advisory board members, and I mean many other roles they actively play for our program. And we have a range of internships offered last summer, which enable us to kind of place 14 students into those internships. And because we have such wide range of collaborators, it enables us to kind of probably match the students' interest, strengths, with a certain company. So for example, some of the students, they would like to get employed by Quest Diagnostics. So they kind of we place them into those internships offered by the Quest Diagnostics. So the student actually rotates through their departments, and they observe the daily operation of the company, and they learn the techniques. And also, most importantly, they kind of networking with the people working there. And so usually this kind of internship will result in like some of the students being employed right out of the internship, and start their career there. Okay. And also we place like they just mentioned that we placed 2 students into a research lab, actually world-renowned virology lab at George Mason University. So they got quite some scientific data there, and then they can actually present to the community in George Mason University, and actually they move on to get like more research experience. Okay. And and we also have students who had an engineering background, who actually was doing some software engineering at a startup company, so they can actually analyze the movement of animals and people, and then they actually kind of create software to analyze to actually phenotype and also analyzing the health issues of people. Okay, so that's also very kind of personalized experience for them. Okay. Next, please. All right. So in terms of job placement, I mean, it's kind of challenging to track where they go after they graduate from the program. But through our LinkedIn group, so we have a LinkedIn group for the entire program, and we do find that multiple students actually moving to their 4-year degree at like VCU, at Howard University, and also at William Mary. And also we see like multiple students get employed at, I mean, different companies and also at the university labs. So we're very happy to see actually they kind of move on in their career pursuit. Okay. Okay.
Well, I
Yeah,
think that's it.
that's it.
Yeah, I guess our questions are at the end, so we don't take too much time. Okay, that's it.
Thank you so much. So at this time, we will welcome our second Project Talk speakers, Alyssa Hannon and Marilyn Barger. Their presentation introduces a national research study from Rutgers examining how community college technician programs drive regional economic development and offering tools to help colleges better understand and communicate their impact. Welcome.
Thank you, Dan. Alyssa, you're going to share the slides. And I'm going to quickly go through some introductory slides. And first of all, noting that Michelle is not with us today. She's actually the PI of this project and the director of this center at Rutgers, the Center for um, Education and Employment. There were had three major goals in this study, which is wrapping up this summer. One, just to see what's going on with ATE with respect to their work with economic development and how to define how they're connected. Um, and next, to develop a conceptual model, have a better understanding of what's important for economic development with respect to these technical programs and developing a conceptual model, which I'll share shortly. And lastly, to try to develop some measurements for how do we know what they're doing and that it's doing good work, basically. So next. So here's the conceptual model, and just very quickly, there's a column for community college activities and economic development outcomes. So you can see the activities, outcomes looks like a logic model, some of you might think. And then there's some ideas underneath them that go from the community college activities that map into economic development outcomes. So should be a familiar thought process for most ATE that's if they don't do those models, logic models, they follow this kind of a path and thinking of what do we affect. And you'll see this tied to the results so that Alyssa's going to share shortly. So you'll see activities are training programs, supporting businesses, and engaging in with regional partners. And those outcomes being the skilled and inclusive workforce, productive and innovative inclusive firms, and a productive, innovative, inclusive regional ecosystem. So you can see building from small to larger. Next. And we did start with a survey of some of the ATE projects, and we're not going to talk about those results, but we'll be posting some files that do support that. Again, there's the outcomes. You'll be able to review this if you're interested at another time. Another part of this made some apps and tools that where you could map these different kinds of relationships between for labor market data visualization tools. Those are available on the website that will be shared. And some more studies on the college's responsiveness. People always talk about this. Are we responsive to industry needs in our areas? And there's some great findings in this study, in this paper. Again, and we'll provide you with the links to those. But mostly we're going to talk about these case studies and the outcomes that really map back from actually just reinforce all of the other information that we got from these various different studies that I've just briefly mentioned. We did intensive case studies at 3 colleges in Arizona, 3 colleges in in Ohio, one in Wisconsin, and one in Florida. And with that, I think, let's see. Oh, I guess I can. This is mine too, right? You can see where we collected data for this. It was a lot of very intensive interviews, both in person and through Zoom. 79 interviews for college folks of different varieties, different job levels, 20 employer partners, and 11 regional economic development partners that were interviewed back in 23 and some in 24. And then the interview data was conducted with in vivo and analytical memos. So I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa to push on.
Wonderful. Thanks, Marilyn. So I'll just walk us through the case study report now, including its findings from its 3 primary chapters and 2 practice-oriented tools which it offers. So just to give you a sense of the structure of the case study report, it's organized according to the logic of the overall project's conceptual model, and it has 3 chapters. I'll walk through each one now and some of the findings for each. So chapter 1 is called College Activities and Strategies, and it's focused on the college perspective. Some of its insights include number 1, that many college economic development activities extend from the curricula of their manufacturing-related technician education programs, more specifically from designing, operationalizing, and updating that curricula. There were also many efforts to have collaborative curricula where multiple actors from regional industry might have been involved, and in some cases, open or shared curricula across multiple educational institutions through regional or industry-specific educational alliances among colleges. So curricula can be an important vehicle for convening both industry players and the regional education sector. Number 2, we found that education and training, business support, and regional engagement activities were strategically linked, with education and training being a natural anchor for the other types of activities. Also, workforce-oriented programs provided a uniquely useful vehicle for the productive blending of strategies by colleges across these activity types, helping to embed colleges organically in the networks of their regional ecosystems and to cohere their role within them. Specifically, work-based learning was observed to be an especially critical activity. It created direct linkages between colleges and their industry partners and between students and potential employers. It also, in some cases, facilitated connections among firms in the regional industry themselves. Number 3, among the partnership work colleges do, employer partnerships intuitively and partnerships with other community colleges, potentially surprisingly, were among the most important. The last 2 bullets there indicate that how colleges institutionalized these programs varied considerably, and how inclusion was operationalized also varied, though it was an important issue for all of the colleges. To note, community-based organizations were important partners for achieving inclusion goals, especially with regard to outreach. More detail on these themes can be found in Chapter 1. Chapter 2 is called Employer Contributions, and it focuses on 5 big themes that came from interviews with the college's employer partners. For theme 1, college responsiveness, broadly, employers found colleges to be very responsive and providers of valuable skills foundations. On the second theme, the division of training responsibilities, employers sought general but also industry relevant skills from colleges. However, as trust was built between employers and colleges, colleges took on a more specific, either to industry or firm, skilling role over time. There were also some tensions between colleges and their employer partners about who did what. One college discussed intentionally meeting their regional industries, not their individual firm partners' needs. Theme 3, contributions to the industry and region. Some employers took on a regional industry-oriented perspective, seeing their needs and interests in line with their regional industry, but not all or even most of them did this. The report finds variation in an industry perspective on the part of firms. To note, larger firms did in general suggest capacity for more regional approaches to skill building, but for some of our case study colleges, small and medium-sized firms were regionally minded and industry-oriented. So ultimately, it really depended on the case-by-case regional ecosystem dynamics. Ultimately, a regional approach to skill building needs cultivation, and it can't be assumed that firms or firms of a certain size take on that orientation naturally. Theme 4, strong partnerships. Strong and long tenure relationships between colleges and individual firms allowed for greater industry orientation and collaboration around skill building for the whole region. So strong one-on-one college firm bonds can blossom into more regional collaboration. Theme 5, college collaboration. Colleges were given considerable credit for their collaboration work by their employer partners. They were also credited with facilitating firm-to-firm connections, as I mentioned earlier, which helped bring together the regional industry and thus a sense of its shared skill demand. More insights from the employer perspective can be found in Chapter 2. Chapter 3 is called Ecosystems Analysis. Using the insights from college's regional economic development partners, it endeavors to characterize the ecosystems in which community colleges operate, as well as the perspectives within them on the ways community colleges engage in economic development productively. The chapter is based largely on our development of 4 approaches to the community college role in economic development. Those are the student responsive approach, the firm responsive approach, and 2 more approaches at the level of the region, industry responsive and community responsive approaches. These 4 approaches represent both functional interdependencies of the work all colleges do to some degree, as well as different strategic orientations for thinking about how colleges go about that work at the regional level or not in their economic development ecosystems. The idea of community colleges as regional players comes up repeatedly in this chapter, as worker skills and regional labor markets have become an increasingly central dimension of industry growth strategies, a key focus for economic development practitioners. Community colleges in many places are the most dynamic and direct institutional linkage connecting regional skills demand with regional labor markets. So colleges as regional players with an explicit economic development role to play is an important point of emphasis in this chapter. Accordingly, we do a deeper dive into the regional approaches, industry responsive and community responsive, and we lay out specific activities for actors in both. Industry responsive approaches center a coordinated response to regional industry, and they feature an industry-focused market coordinating role for colleges. Key partners to colleges in that work are often regional employer or industry associations. As an example, you can think about colleges, say, working with regional industry associations to get a sense of their overall shared skill needs in order to inform their training curricula. Community responsive approaches center a focus on regional growth that represents tangible gains for workers, and they often feature a power balancing role for colleges within their economic development ecosystems. Key partners in that work are often public sector economic development organizations, among other organizations, including community-based organizations and organized labor. As an example, you can think about colleges, say, critically evaluating on some kind of regular basis their training programs in terms of how faithfully they connect to good, well-paying jobs and promotional trajectories in their regional labor market. We'll come back to these approaches as a practitioner's tool in a few moments. So with those insights in mind, I'm going to share 2 tools now, which the report presents, and both are based foundationally on the conceptual model. The first is the activities checklist, where we list the 3 activity types and those related activities all of the colleges were observed to be implementing under each, as well as those activities only some of the colleges were observed to be implementing. It's an inventory of sorts of what these colleges practically do related to economic development in these 3 arenas: education and training, business support, and regional engagement. So you'll see under education and training, all colleges implemented things like work-based learning and regionally aligned curriculum, whereas only some offered industry certifications and credit for prior learning. In the interest of time, I'm not going to read all the activities, but you can see them in the report and in a checklist brief, which can be used as a worksheet of sorts and which we'll share with you after this. We do the same thing here with business support activities and regional engagement activities as we did with education and training, listing what all and some colleges do under each. These lists are naturally shorter, and for each there's only 1 activity we found that all our colleges implemented. For business support, that was incumbent worker training or customized training, and for regional engagement, that was participation in local economic planning or policymaking. To note, in some of the most dynamic examples, established physical hubs at the college for both industry engagement and student learning, including K through 12 exposure, often in the form of dual enrollment, were some of the best ways to blend and cohere the college's economic development engagement efforts across these 3 activity types. The second tool we develop in the report, and again, according to the logic of the conceptual model, is the typology of approaches to economic development, which I mentioned in my summary of chapter 3. As I explained, there are 4 approaches, and they reflect the key principles of the conceptual model. You'll see alongside the education and training stratum in the model, we have the first approach, the student responsive approach. Alongside the business support stratum in the conceptual model, we have the firm responsive approach. And alongside regional engagement, you see 2 approaches, industry responsive and community responsive approaches to economic development. We focus on these last 2 approaches in the report because they feature colleges as regional players. So I'll elaborate briefly on them as I wrap up. We want to reiterate that most colleges will deploy a variety of these approaches across their many work streams and strategies and implement many of the same activities. We really develop these approaches in order to think about how colleges are going about that work, and more to the point, are they going about their, for example, education and training and business support activities with a regional lens in mind? Further, if they're already strategizing at the level of the region, are they responding to regional industry? And still further, to the community or local workers in the regional labor market whose needs may not be synonymous with regional industry? These are the questions we aim to capture, and there are many synergies among the approaches as well as some tensions. You can see here we lay out some important activities for colleges and for their potential partners in each of the regional approaches, where while we highlight industry associations as an example of a key partner for industry responsive approaches and public sector economic development partners for community responsive approaches. In real time, colleges engage both types of partners, and they need both to be effective players in their regional ecosystems. However, the typology is in a way highlighting the top priorities or interests of colleges' potential partners and what that might mean for how the college partners with them. You can see some of the activities we've highlighted for colleges and their partners in each approach, and I'll just read a few here to give you a sense. So in the industry responsive approach for college activities, we have things like prioritize the transferability of skills among firms in a regional cluster. So not just skills that any one firm needs, but skills that transfer among firms in a cluster. Coordinating with other colleges, that could be in the form of shared curricula or open curricula or a shared face towards industry engagement. Facilitating linkages between firms within that industry and considering regional industry processes, potentially in terms of investment strategy and investments in technology. Some activities we have for employers in an industry responsive approach is prioritizing transferable credentials, contributing to and using shared industry assets, so that could be adaptable curriculum for industry-wide use, coordinating needs with other local firms, and ideally institutionalizing that coordination via college-hosted assets, so that could be certain kinds of technological equipment or facilities, and finally, participating actively in college-led efforts, probably most notably advisory boards. In the community responsive approach for college activities, we have things like advocating for higher wages and greater skills investments, integrating wraparound services via partnership with the public sector, engaging underrepresented groups via partnership with community-based organizations, and engaging community in strategic planning at the institutional level. Some activities for the economic development partner in a community responsive approach, supporting alignment of strategy between colleges and public sector agencies, elevating the importance of hiring and wage commitments that are made by local firms, and facilitating investments by the state in the regional capacity of colleges. One final note we want to make on this typology is this, that in part what the ecosystem and its actors think the college should do at the level of regional economic development shapes to some extent what the college then can do. Colleges are already doing an incredible amount of heavy lifting within their economic development ecosystems, including on behalf of firms and in ways that benefit both firms and the public. And much of that economic development work goes under-acknowledged and under-resourced. So in a sense, this report can be read as a vote of confidence for colleges doing this kind of work and a resource for advocating for greater support of that work from the public, but also from firms. And so this is just a list of the project team and a link to the website where you can find the final report as well as many supplementary briefs. And this is a QR code to that website. And with that, I will stop share.
Thank you, Alyssa and Marilyn. And at this time, I would like to draw your attention to the chat. Marilyn did share some files related to their project. We will also have those on our website. And again, at this time, I would like to open it up to any questions that you may have for our any of our presenters this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're from.
So I'll just jump in and report the files that I did upload. I did the two documents that Alyssa referred to, the checklist and the typology briefs. Those two briefs are there. So the checklist is kind of a tool. I like this particular tool because as most college folks working in a technical curriculum will notice that they do a lot of this stuff already, and it's a cornerstone for moving it all to the next level, to getting more engaged with their community. So you'll identify strongly with a lot of the activities in this list. So I hope everyone gets the good old boy feeling from reviewing that. And then the others are the slides and the executive summary of this report that the information Alyssa presented is there. So the executive summary is, rather short, and the whole project report is rather long, like 100 pages. So lots of good details in there, and then a lot of good examples from the different colleges in the case studies. You can, kind of search for different things through that document to get real information about what and how people in different colleges did some of these activities.
Thank you, Marilyn. Anne, you have your hand up.
Hi, thank you so much, Marilyn and Alyssa. That was amazing. I attended today specifically to hear this presentation, and it's really valuable. And thanks for all the resources. So I'm in Central Virginia. We have a very strong and proactive biotechnology association, the CVIL BioHub. And you mentioned, the importance of those types of associations. I guess my question is more about state level intermediaries like the Ohio Life Sciences. And so I'm familiar with the Ohio system, also quite familiar with the NC Bio Network in North Carolina. I'm just wondering about the other states that you worked in, like Wisconsin, Florida, Arizona. Do they have similar state level intermediaries? And is that, like, to what degree is that important in what you've talked about today?
I think it depends because the industry is, I'll just jump in, listen, hopefully you can comment too. The industries could be just regional. I mean, they may not be statewide. So I'm in Florida, and that's true for a lot of our industry sectors. Florida is definitely a big state, covers a lot of different geographies and therefore different resources. And so we don't have, we have a heavy biotech and manufacturing sector in Central Florida, but we have a very different economic development activities in other parts of the state. Um, so I think that kind of makes a change, there for balancing that or making sure that everyone is represented. Could be parts of this that regional might be more appropriate if it's localized to the region and including them all. So I think it just kind of depends. There is more and more activity, I think, and there's more and more activity as we colleges also think about more alignment of curriculum with the understanding, of course, that there are local um, nuances to curriculum depending on the specifics of an industry sector that's located in their region. But having some kind of core skills across a state, across the country even, can be really valuable for students, for industry, and for the educators as well. And then focusing on local needs and regional needs at a college level, still within the program, is also supports this activity with at different levels, I think. As usual, it kind of depends on the circumstances and the industry sector. Here in biotech and other industry sectors might be different as well.
Yeah, I think I can just add to what Marilyn said. I think we thought about this a lot because the state context did uh, influence sort of the outcomes in the different case studies. And there was certainly observable trends in Arizona and Ohio where there was this strong state collaboration or collaboration at the state level. I'll say one just for all of the colleges, all 8 colleges, being in tune with state level policy, especially in terms of certain lines of funding that are available, legislative changes that are really important for those for that funding, et cetera, was really important. So there was that level of engagement, I think, from all of the colleges, or at least aspirationally or in as part of it was on their radar. I think for the colleges, and so speaking specifically about Ohio and Arizona, as Marilyn noted, what it looked like to collaborate, say at a level higher than the quote unquote region or the county level, depended on how the industry took shape in that state. So in Arizona, there was a lot of collaboration at the county cross county level. So Maricopa County was really this, and they were able to leverage that collaboration for significant state support. And state level actors, economic development actors in particular, were really important in helping to bolster what collaboration or coordination was going on the ground. I think, as Marilyn also noted, it depended on whether or not the state was sort of at the state level courting a particular industry. And for example, in the case of Ohio, that was definitely true in terms of, say, for example, the relationship with Intel. And that allowed for a significant amount of coordination. I'll say that often came in when the state was involved in the form of funding coordination at the institutional level. So really institutionalizing coordination and placing it at the college. So Intel was also key in funding many of those efforts. And I think a lot of the examples in the report around Ohio would be really good examples of colleges coordinating with the state and at the state level in sort of courting and meeting the needs of industry. I'll stop there.
Did we answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Do we have any additional questions for our presenters?
Dion, I put a question in the chat because
Oh,
my
sorry, Michael. Yeah.
my internet's unstable, so I thought I'd at least try and get it in there. Hopefully, it's not too broad of a question, but
We were trying to tackle a lot of really broad questions. To be honest, it was.
I'm sorry, Michael. I'm trying to find your question.
Mm.
I did receive a message asking if, oh, here it is. I'm sorry. Asking Marilyn if you all will share your slide deck. And if you don't mind, you can always email that to me.
I actually think it's one of the files that I uploaded. I'm just
Oh,
double
okay.
checking right now.
Okay. And then here's the question that Michael posted. For Marilyn and Alyssa, in terms of successful K-12 engagement, what were some key strategies? More importantly, who drove that work? Was it from the college, faculty, or outreach offices, or the K-12 partners, CBOs? And how was that facilitated?
I couldn't take a stab at that, Alyssa. I think the most effective thing we saw were implementation of dual enrollment, and that has a very broad brush of how it was, how it was done, um, and how it was attempted, and actually who did it, which organization kind of drove that, as I think was part of the question. And the kind of response that I see is that it really takes all the players to participate in those conversations, and it has to be the level um, of kind of credits that can be transferred and that were gotten in the high school seem to matter. So one or two courses is just one or two courses. It might be enough to get somebody interested, but it may not pull them further into the program. So I think thinking carefully about how to maximize the alignment to give the students in the high school through dual enrollment as much opportunity as they can to get engaged in the curriculum is important. And that can depend on a lot of logistics, transportation. They usually need transportation. They usually have to go to the college to experience some of the hands-on portions of the courses and curriculum, or faculty have to go to the high school, or high school faculty have to get credentialed. So there's some barriers there that require participation and support from both institutions and possibly industry and this ecosystem in the area. If the need is really great for employees, then the industry sector and the economic development community should see this as a good opportunity to build that workforce. It's also a great mechanism for sustaining the programs if there's enough to continue to keep your program growing to support the industry in your area. So I think it's very much individual, just like a lot of the work that we did depended a lot on the kinds of organizations in the region.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is I think in our report, to my memory, Gateway stands out in terms of their work on dual enrollment. I think we found that, as Marilyn noted, sort of thinking about the full picture. So if my memory serves, there was sort of a historical legacy relationship there and already sort of coordination among the K through 12 in terms of dual enrollment. And they also did some really neat sort of strategizing in order to facilitate dual enrollment and a connection between the K through 12 institutions and the community college. Including establishing a physical hub and also thinking about, how proximate it is. What are the logistics? How do we make this a regular piece of the K through 12 educational sort of agenda? I think the other piece there was funding lines. So where schools could be reimbursed and they had knowledge of and sort of historical experience with accessing those funds really helped to deepen dual enrollment relationships.
I would add that too. I think that relationship that we saw at Gateway, that was such a good example, is that it also the connection between the K-12 system and so not just dual enrollment, so beyond that. So the dual enrollment was tied to the outreach for the middle school age students, et cetera, in and around this hub that students became familiar with as they went through school. That opportunity and that connection, deep connection between the district and the college, really impressed industry, and they did get a lot of industry participation and support, being financial support. So it really tied the outreach efforts, as we would put them in one bucket, with a recruitment, a serious recruitment effort in another bucket to actually enroll students. They were very tightly aligned, and industry saw that because they would see the same students, for example, as they went through school and they moved into a dual enrollment, hopefully. So it's a great example of what was going on.
Thank you. Is the gateway that you're talking about one of the case studies?
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
great.
Gateway
Thanks so
and
much.
yeah.
This is really helpful. Much appreciated.
Oh, great. We're glad to hear it for sure. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to any of us and or Michelle, or we'll help you find an answer or think about what issue you're trying to deal with.
Do we have any other questions for our presenters? Well, at this time, I would like to open it up to our presenters. Are there any final thoughts, David, Alyssa, uh, Shin, and Marilyn?
I will just jump in. I know that I've been in the AT community for decades and now retired, but it sounds like a lot if you're working on your first project and you're just trying to get your program going or make some changes to your program. But I think it's important to remember the bigger context that you live in as most of the ATE projects have to do in at least in a small way because of involving engaging with their industry and possibly working with other institutions or four-year institutions. All of that is really important for sustaining, and you need the biggest bunch of people engaged in your in your program as you can to help sustain it and help it build and become even more effective for your industry partners. So that's my 2 cents on this particular project, and I hope it gives focus to many folks who might feel like it's overwhelming, but as you know, a goal, something to keep in mind as you work as you do your work.
I would kind of echo that sentiment. One thing I've learned over these years is to try to encourage your colleagues to apply for ATE grants. We've gotten so much good feedback from a variety of sources, including well, Dr. Carter before she left, of course,
Yeah.
just about like if you have the infrastructure set up, you guys should, her words to us were basically, you guys should be cleaning up on this, like, apply, apply, apply. What's the worst they can say is no, you apply next year. But to get your colleagues excited about what can be done with these projects, I think it's really, they have to hear from you, or they may be hesitant to try or think it's going to be more commitment, more work than it ought to be. And so those kinds of words of encouragement, I think, go a long way.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much on most faculty and programs. Many programs are small. It's hard to keep your head above water. I've been there and I understand it perfectly. But at the same time, in order to keep your head above water, you need as much support as possible. And some of that lies in your institution, but some of it lies outside of your institution as well. As a community can say, we need this program, your industry community can say, we need this program to the college and have that filter down to help support you. And the grants in this particular program allow you to have time and funds that you can't typically get from your colleges to do some of the things that need to be done to build that community.
And so I have 1:30 Central Time on my clock, and I would like to thank everyone for joining us, most importantly, our presenters. And I place the evaluation survey link in the chat. Please complete that at your earliest convenience. And finally, we do have one more scheduled. It's not an ATE project talk, but we do have a community meeting set up for May 8th, and you can find